Thank you for downloading episode 340. This week we have Biden learning about relief. Always be attractive. Hello, 911. They screwed up my Whopper. Elmer Fudd. Obama calls out brothers. Man Enough. The Nacho Eucharist. And 60 Minutes. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my former partner in this endeavor. Ken Pullin decided to take his wife to get drunk in Napa. I'm with Matt Lowe.
How's it going, Dave?
Not bad, man. Not bad. How are you?
Oh, busy, but it's always fun to come on here and chat with you.
Well, busy is why you had to step back.
Right.
7 kids, an 80-hour a week job, plus travel.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell you do with all your free time.
I was in D.C. last week, and I still stink. It's that city is unreal.
I haven't been in a few years.
Traffic in and around there is horrible. And this is coming from someone who is used to navigating Atlanta traffic. That place it's unreal. It takes 25 minutes to go 3 miles. And the Uber drivers were, God bless them, but none of them. We took an Uber anywhere from 2 to 3 times a day. I was there for 5 days. And I didn't have a single one that spoke English, which normally is fine, except when you've got a group of dudes that are going back and forth. We were up there for a trade show, and it never failed. One of us would forget something, and you'd have to, be like, hey, stop, turn around, go back. And they couldn't, they couldn't communicate, what we needed to do there. They could only read whatever. And we had Spanish, Cambodians. We had one guy from Senegal in Western Africa. It was neat. It was very cool. They did speak some broken English, enough to kind of communicate, but they couldn't understand. Turn around and go back.
Well, don't you have a translation? Like in the future, it should be, oh, where are you from? And go ahead and pull that up in the Google Translator app.
Right. Yeah, we didn't think about that. I mean,
the other thing
our
is,
travel times were early.
Yeah, the other thing is, if you're going to be there that long, why not hire a driver?
I don't know why we didn't just rent a car, but whatever.
Because you can't park.
We were at a convention center.
Yeah, parking's probably $100 a day at the hotel. We found out in Boston. Look, we talk about Uber driver doesn't know English. We ordered Uber Eats. Connie was not feeling well, so we just ordered Uber Eats. She couldn't find the hotel. Could not find the hotel, and eventually just put in delivered and drove off with our food. So to fight with Uber Eats, she just gave up. Either just took our food and threw it out, or took it home to her family. She was a Spanish speaker, and I speak Spanish pretty well, but not enough to. I don't know Boston well enough to give directions. So I grabbed somebody who speaks English at the hotel and gave him the phone, and this idiot still couldn't find it. But yeah, if you're going to be there for several days, I mean, you could just hire a driver. Meet us every day at 6:00 at the lobby, and every day pick us up at 4:30 at the convention center.
Right.
Now, I spent the last 9 days in Arizona as we're recording. We're recording actually pretty late for the show. The last show, Ken and I recorded on a Wednesday, and Matt and I recording on 8:00 Sunday night. So this is the latest opinion we could possibly give you. The Falcons just pulled off a win. Matt's Volunteers in overtime beat my Gators. And possibly the worst game the SEC has ever seen between two powerhouse organizations. I mean, you and I were both rooting for our teams to lose. At this point, just lose.
Right. I think the best way to sum that up was my buddy that was like, Tennessee is trying to give this game to Florida, and Florida's like, nah, man, we don't want it.
That's exactly what happened. I mean, Billy Napier, just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And look, I was watching that game on the flight coming in. The first quarter. So I missed the most of the second, third, and half of the fourth quarter driving home because you still have to get through ATL. And he got home and watched the end of it. Like, we're gonna pull this out. We're gonna pull this out. Then overtime happened. Like, oh no, oh no, 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 no. And this is the only time you'll actually talk sports ball is when it involves Tennessee, and,
Right.
and any team that any of your friends like, which is why you like Tennessee, so you can pick on the Georgia fans.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah,
Pick
man,
on
I
the
was
Georgia
in,
fans, Florida fans, Alabama fans.
well, you
All right,
can
so
now.
Arizona.
Yeah, man, I was went into Phoenix. We spent a couple days in Phoenix. Got to see, when I say longtime friends, Marcy was pregnant with Chad, her oldest, and saw him while I was out there. At the same time, my mom was pregnant with me, and they both worked for the same bank. That she wiped my ass and probably swatted it a few times. So I've known these people literally all my life. Got to spend some time with them. Al's also a very successful guy, hardest working guy you ever meet. Had a business that went belly up in the 70s. Went to work for Taco Bell, then ended up owning Taco Bell's, and now he's a angel investor and flips houses and rents houses and stuff like that. Al's in his 70s. At this point he does it for recreation.
Right.
Because he can't.
I remember
he can't
you
do
talking
nothing.
about this family before, like when we're out fishing or whatever. Like I've heard you mention them before.
Yeah, they're fantastic folks. I hadn't seen Todd in a long. I've talked to him. I'll call him every once in a while. It's funny is I got the warning from Al, Todd's father, that he's on the liberal side. I'm like, Al, I'm a libertarian. Everybody loves me and hates me.
Right.
Like I'll talk about certain things, like yeah. Then I'll talk about other things, other freedom, and they're like, whoa, you can't have that much freedom. So yeah, I consider myself a Republicarian. I vote Republican. I caucus with the Republicans. I support Republican candidates and all that stuff. But I wish they were more freedom oriented. I want to keep Democrats out of your wallet and Republicans out of your bedroom.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, Flagstaff. Flagstaff is around almost 7,000 feet elevation. It's funny. You go from Phoenix, which is a valley, desert, and you go to Flagstaff, and it's all ponderosa forest.
Right.
And then from there, we went to Grand Canyon, which, again, is down in the desert. And these are all within 2 hours of each other, these different environments. Go to the Grand Canyon. I texted you, being a smartass, had a juvenile female elk walk within 2 feet of me at the visitor center. Like she was pushing people to the side to go and eat the bushes.
Right. You were like, what's so hard about this?
Yeah, I could kill this with a baseball bat.
F off, Dave.
So we're doing this driving
Which
tour.
is
It's called
pretty close to what that text said.
Yeah. So the name of the tour we used was Guide Along. You download it into your phone and it uses the navigation from your phone. It's fantastic. Used it for Grand Canyon Park and for Sedona. But so we're going along and we stop. We see some mule deer eating and hop out of the truck to get some pictures and see a damn buck mule deer just sit there on the side of this path, just munching. I'm like, I guess it's not quite rut yet, because he's got 4 females around him, and he's eating. So, nice sized mule deer. And I was standing there with 4 other rednecks that came out of the truck in front of us, and they're like, "Oh, that one would go to the club. That's got a wide enough spread." I'm like, "Well, if you got a silencer, we'll pop it right now, throw it in the back of the truck I got, and we'll go have dinner." So little one down the ways, I see a bull elk, and a nice sized bull elk. So I get out of the truck naturally because I'm an idiot, and stalk kind of close to him. And look, I'm still more than 30 meters away. And I got trees between us, and elk have a pretty wide spread on their horns that he's not going to come charging at me. I've got trees between us. And there was his cow was off to the side, and I did not get between him and the cow. I could tell you that much. Mm-hmm. And I've been around enough animals, all animals kind of act the same when they feel threatened. I don't care if it's a snake, I don't care if it's an elk, a bull. I don't care if it's a shark. They all have certain body language, and he never felt threatened. I just kind of kept moving to the side so I could get a picture without trees in between us, and got it, and got back to the truck, and of course Connie's peeing herself.
Is this that one you sent the picture to me of?
Yeah, the bull elk. Yeah,
The bull, that was a nice 5x5. Like for anyone that knows elk, it was a 5x5. It was about 350 class elk. It was like, that was a bona fide shooter elk in any state, in any unit.
Oh, dude, that female up at the visitor center, and most people who've been to national parks know what I'm talking about. It's metal posts that are driven in the ground and has chain run around it, and it's not something you can't step over. It's only about 3 feet high, but it just gives you the idea that you're not supposed to step in this area.
Right.
Well, this juvenile bull or juvenile cow is trying to step over this thing and gets caught. And Connie goes, "I want to help it." I'm like, "That is a 300 to 400 pound animal. Stay the hell away from it." This is where it lives. It could get over. If it wants to get over that chain, it can, and it did. It backed up, looked at it, then jumped over it. I'm like, leave it alone. That's a 300 to 400 pound animal. It's a baby at 400 pounds. All it has to, it doesn't have to mean anything. Just give you a slight kick to stay away from it, and you're in the hospital. That bull, I'm guessing, is 1,000 pound class. Its back was about as tall as I am. I'm 6'1". It certainly was not full grown, but it was 1,000 pound class. When I say 1,000 pound class, that's anywhere from 800 to 1,200.
He was probably. Let me go back and look at that picture real quick. Because elk are not like moose. They're big animals, don't get me wrong, but he was probably on the hoof. He's probably 550 or 6.
Yeah,
like it's a nice bull.
Look, it gets heavier as I get further from being there.
Right, right.
It's a lot like fish. I lost a 20-pounder. 3 years later, I had this 50-pounder on the line.
Right.
So from there we went to Page, and this is on the Navajo reservation. You and I were talking about it earlier today. It's funny because Arizona does not do daylight saving time, which I'm cool with. At 6 o'clock it's dark. But the Navajo Nation does daylight saving time, and you explained it's because Navajo Nation covers several different states that do observe it. So if you're using an iWatch or you're using your phone for time, it screws you up because it's an hour different.
Right.
So the tours, and we booked a tour to go to a slot canyon and to Horseshoe Bend. And it was on the Navajo reservation. It was with a family of Navajo. They own like 35 square miles, which would be in Georgia that would make you a multi-billionaire. In Arizona, it's dirt and scrub grass. The best thing ever happened to them was the Super Bowl in Arizona a few years ago, because they kept running ads for these slot canyons in Horseshoe Bend, and everybody wanted to go. So if you want to take a tour, you have to pay the Navajo Nation, which I'm happy to do. But for two of us, for a 3-hour tour to the slot canyon, was $350, and there was 10 of us on the tour. That ain't bad,
right?
That ain't bad. But the slot canyons were beautiful. There's some pictures on my Facebook of a spot where it's really narrow in the slot canyon, and you look up and it just looks like a crack, and you can see the sky through the crack up there.
Right.
But and I told you. So Connie's a back patient. Obviously, I've talked about it on the show before, and the sand is not the easiest to walk in, especially if that's not what I've done a bunch of walking in sand before, so it didn't bother me too much. I mean, annoyed my knee a little bit, but she sits down at one point, takes a break, and goes, "Just go ahead. You've got to come back this way. Just leave me. I'm not leaving you in the friggin' desert."
Right.
I can hear the Dateline right now. He walked away. She was alive, or was she?
He took the water too.
He took the water with him. But that's the thing on this tour is we're 3 miles from the truck before we make the turn onto this reservation property, and we're 3 or 4 miles into the desert on this thing, and the guy that drove us is ahead of us in the slot cadence. There is no leaving.
Right.
If you can't handle the walk through the slats, there's no leaving. It's not like we could, yes, I could hike out, but carrying make matters worse, Matt. I was carrying Connie's backpack because it's smaller. It says only small backpack, so I wasn't carrying my big backpack that I can carry a lot of stuff in. So I got like 2 little bottles of water. I'm like, look, if we get stuck out here, we're dead.
In a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, by the time they find us, they're going to find 2 pieces of beef jerky.
You probably look better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I already look like crap. You've already told the story of the show that Matt and I were at a liquor store together, and I guess I wasn't looking my best, and the girl was nice to him. Said, "Don't be nice to him." He goes, "Oh, is that your son?" So Matt now has his kids call me Grandpa Dave.
That's my favorite story.
Yeah, I went through real quick. You tell it better, but it takes 15 minutes.
Right. I'm telling that shit at your funeral. I think you should just know.
Well, it won't be at another wedding because, trust me, if this one leaves me, I'm not dumb enough to get married again. No, my wife's
she didn't hear that.
Oh, no, I'm sure she did. I'll get punished for it later, I'm sure.
Right.
No, man, my wife keeps me alive. I mean, she makes sure I take all my keep alive pills. And I'm not sure if she wants to keep me alive because she loves me or she just wants to continue to torture me for the next 40 years.
It's probably a little bit of both.
That's what she says. It's a little bit of both. Well, we certainly chose well to go out west instead of Florida.
Yeah, you did.
I've got family in Florida. My sister's first husband, who we all adore. Carl's a good guy. He's a pharmacist, super educated guy. Lives near Tampa, a mile from the beach. Decided not to leave because he drives a Tesla, and was worried he wouldn't have enough charge to get out. I assume he lived. I haven't heard anything from him, but obviously my sister's ex-husband and I don't talk all that often. But I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's just south of Tampa on the beach. Where did the storm hit? Just south of Tampa. Right. There's still about 1 million without power when it hit. And look, I've been disconnected for the last week and a half. I did tune in to obviously being a Floridian and just being an American and just want to see what's going on with the storm. I stayed away from politics for 9 days. It was glorious. But where it hit, I mean, I recognized, and it hit the East Coast, and my family's from Stewart, and I've got a lot of family in Stewart, and Stewart got pretty messed up too, which is on the East Coast. Matt, you've been there with me. You and I have been there fishing.
Yes, yeah, we have.
So it got through the state and into the other side of the state as a Cat 1. The tornadoes coming off of it are things that you don't see in Florida. I'm a born Floridian. I've seen tornadoes. Our tornadoes are pencil sticks. They come down, they'll mess something up, and go away. So we
whack
see
a trailer park.
Yeah, we see F1s, F2s, but small. Even if they're strong, they're very concentrated. These were scenes out of Twister. These were giant tornadoes. And there is no cellar in Florida. You can't dig a hole in Florida any more than 3 feet deep. It'll fill up with water. We don't have cellars. So especially in a trailer park. So when, as it's called, the finger of God starts coming across that state, that's it. There's just nowhere to hide.
Right.
And
I think,
and the fact that it was the middle of the night had to be terrifying.
Part of me thinks that more damage came out of those tornadoes than the hurricane itself.
Oh, absolutely.
My friends Margot and Joel.
Oh yeah.
So Joel's brother lives in Sarasota, and he owns a chain of private grocery stores down there.
IGA?
No. It's
IGA just stands for Independent Grocers Association. They're all independent.
Yeah, no, this is like Sunflower Grocery or something like that. I don't know. They've got 3 or 4 or 5 stores. But like their house wrecked. Actually, their house got wrecked in the first one that came through what was
Helene.
it, Helene? And then, of course, they're in Sarasota. But and I've got a one of the guys on my team at work. He lives in Inverness, which is a little north. And he fared okay through both of them. He said the second one was a lot more wind and rain, but he was on he's north of Tampa, so it wasn't. He was kind of on the outer bands. He did all right.
Well, he was on the clean side of the storm. Tampa was on the clean side of the storm. And look, clean side doesn't mean it's not nasty.
Right. It's just cleaner.
Right. It's just you don't get as many tornadoes. And the reason you get tornadoes off of a storm, if you think about a bathtub and it's perfectly calm, then take your hand in the bathtub and run it really quickly and watch the little whirlpools that come off of it. Air is a fluid. So that's what causes the tornadoes coming off the hurricanes is that gear effect of the storm turning against the air, and air is a fluid, physics 101. And that's what causes these tornadoes to come off. And you expect smaller tornadoes and water spouts and things like that. This son of a gun was turning off these giant, again, like movie Twister size storms. And again, it's middle of the night and there's nowhere to hide. Had to be terrifying.
Right.
Well, that brings us to, did Biden actually learn from Helene? He announced while surveying Florida on Sunday that $600 million will flow to the states affected by hurricanes, Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas. $100 million just to go to improve Florida's electrical grid. $100 million, I'm sorry. So I think he did learn something because he put boots on the ground this time. And Ken and I were talking last week. Do you remember the hell that W caught for flying over New Orleans instead of landing?
I do.
And the reason he did that is once a president hits the ground, everything stops.
Right.
In fact, and I said this last week, my plane on the way down for relief, at the time, I like an idiot, joined the Georgia National Guard after I got out of the real Army and all that stuff. Said, oh, I miss it. I did not. I did not miss it. Did not at all miss it. But we got grounded at NAS in Florida, in Pensacola, because we're waiting for Bush to do his flyover before we could go in and land and start our relief efforts. But Biden is coming off. If we had seen this Biden for 3 years, he would still be the nominee. The guy that puts on the MAGA hat as a joke, the guy that shows up to things, the guy that compliments DeSantis over the way he handles disasters and things like that. I think that's if that was the guy we saw the last 3 years, he would be a contender. I still think Trump would take him, but he would be a contender.
Right.
But that's not who we saw the last 3 years. Who we saw was a doddering idiot who, and look, this is a mistake he made in the last week or so, is Karine Jean-Pierre has been promoted to senior advisor to the president. So he couldn't fire her because she's inept. You couldn't fire her. She's the daughter of an immigrant, black, lesbian. He cannot fire her.
Right.
So what do you do with somebody who's incompetent that you can't fire? You promote. And anybody who thinks I'm being flippant, you have never worked for the government. When you're wondering, like, how the hell did that guy make major? He screwed everything up as a company commander at captain. They're like, let's put him in a staff role where he can't hurt anybody, promote him. It happens all over the government. Trust me, my father's been promoted a few times. It's a joke, Pop. It's a joke.
What were you promoted to?
I was promoted. You know the fastest way to make E4? Be an E5.
Right.
No, the reason I lost my E5 is I never same thing, same reason. I don't address myself as sergeant. Same reason Tim Walz lost his is I got pinned, but never completed the school before I got out. So all my records put me back as a specialist. And so when I went back in the National Guard, I went back in as a specialist, which is not a big deal. Specialist is one of
Right.
the best ranks in the Army because you don't actually have to do anything. It's called the sham shield.
Right.
Matt, you're gonna like this story.
The
Young,
E4
pretty, and
Mafia.
crying. The E4. I was ahead. I was in the E4 Mafia. All right, E4 Mafia. The officer will come to you, and I did this when I was a non-commissioned officer. We need this, and you walk away. The E4 Mafia. It just makes sure it appears. I don't care if it's a Humvee door. We were getting ready to deploy to Eastern Europe, and we didn't have any long underwear, and Supply had it. But they said it wasn't on a requisition. I told a guy who worked for me, Paul. I said, we need it. He goes, yeah. So I walked away. Next day, we all had, which is polypropylene, long underwear. We all had it. Then the next day, they took us over to Central Issuing, and we got more. All right, so Young, Pretty, and Crying. Julia Jaroslawski, and I'm sure I've slaughtered it. I'm sorry. I know I know it's a Polish name. I should be able to pronounce it, but I'm just not good at it. 20-year-old student, and hot, by the way. She's using her standby, her pass privileges. So I assume one of her parents works for an airline to fly around the world, which is cool.
Right.
When I was younger, I used my pass. I still have pass privileges that I don't use. Used it to fly around the world, and she went to Bangkok, and she was trying to get home to Chicago. So she listed herself on Qatar Airways, and Doha. It was bumped off, which can, when you fly standby, they can bump you for any reason. There were seats available, but they were weight restricted. And weight restricted, when you just wonder, well, why do you put this many seats on an airplane? It comes from cargo. And cargo pays way more than passengers and pays infinitely more than a pass rider who's doing nothing but paying the taxes on that seat. So she gets bumped off, and then the gate agent tells her, yeah, you're probably not getting back to the States. Our flights to LA, our flights to Chicago's done, New York and DC are all full. So she goes to this coffee shop. It's called Ralph's Coffee. And she's sobbing and apparently praying her rosary and sobbing. And this guy sitting behind her goes, what's wrong? And she tells him her sob story. And it turns out he's the president of Qatar Airlines. He goes, what's your name? He calls and gets her listed in business class, positive space, on the flight going the next day to New York. She still have to get a hop from New York to Chicago. And then get her access to their premier club. First of all, if she was not 20 years old, pretty and blonde.
That would have never happened. Like a 45-year-old fat guy like me, I'd still be sitting in Doha or wherever.
Look, I don't think even a 45-year-old, fairly attractive woman would have gotten it. She was young. She looked like a kid. I'm not going to make any generalizations about Qatar, but, if I was the CEO of Delta and I saw this and I made it happen and it made the news, I would be in so much trouble when I got home.
Right.
Like, what did she do? And I'm not saying that this girl did anything wrong. Well, she did do some things wrong, but I'm not in that way. One, when you're a pass rider, when you fly non-revenue, you don't talk about it. If you're upset and you can't control tears, you just say nothing. I'm fine. I just missed my flight. Whatever. You don't talk. It's like Fight Club. You don't talk about it.
Right.
Back when I was a kid, we had to dress up. But if I had to go address a gate agent, I waited for no other customers to be around and whisper, "Hey, my name is Dave Roberts. I'm a non-rev. I'm just checking into the whatever." But you say it at a very low tone, and
Right.
and you didn't advertise. And back then, you didn't have screens telling you the standby lists and all that stuff. But it's one of those things you don't talk about. And look, it's good for her, but that just goes to be attractive. Don't be unattractive.
Right. Well, I mean, but that's really, frankly, the whole world works that way, man. If you look at those, look at all those weird psychological studies that they do about people and how they kind of instinctively trust folks. That's why female salespeople do so well. Or sorry, attractive female salespeople. People instinctively trust attractive people.
Go to any doctor's office and look for the drug reps. That chick that walks in stilettos, that is an 8, 9, or 10, and has a little briefcase next to her. That's a drug rep.
Oh yeah.
She's not there for an exam. That's a drug rep. And they throw elaborate parties and all that stuff, and right. It's and that goes back to the old days when most doctors were male. But the fact is, even women prefer talking to attractive females.
Right.
You know, it goes from guys thinking, "Hey, she's into me a little bit." Even if there's no intention, it just yeah, she's kind of she's kind of nice and flirty. She's kind of into me. Makes you feel good, right?
Right.
Hell, I was in the Sky Club yesterday, and I was getting White Russians and swapping out the cream for Bailey's. I call it a McIvan. And a woman's standing next to me. I was standing at the bar, getting the drinks to take it back over to Connie and me, and she was quite healthy on top. And of course, as soon as she starts asking me about what drink I'm getting and saying, "Oh, that sounds good," of course, Connie's head instinctively spun around like something out of the Exorcist.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah,
it's a bad night.
No, it's like, oh, she's like, oh, so she goes, yeah, I know. I'm like, she just asked me what drink it was. The bartender thought it sounded so good. She took a straw full. Let me just do a taste test on it, and tasted like, oh, that's really good. I mean, it wasn't anything anything like underhanded. I mean, my wife is 7 feet away from me. Trust me, if I was going to sneak around and flirt with some woman in a Sky Club, she would not be in it.
Right.
But no, that's why attractive bartenders get tipped more. It's just you're right. It's just a fact of life.
Right.
And look, she's gonna get old like the rest of us too. All
One
right,
day.
so this is from the files of What the Hell Was He Thinking? And I think this is one that Jonathan Giles shared with us. And for those who don't know, we have several different chats. The show has a chat with Eric, Ken, and myself, and there's a chat with all the former hosts that we talk smack to each other on.
Right.
And this was from him. In March of 2023, Cobb County Sheriff Craig Owen Sr. was unhappy with his order from Burger King.
I think we need to clarify here, or maybe drive the point home. We're not talking about a deputy. We're talking about the elected
sheriff.
Like his name was on the ballot. That's who we're talking about.
Yeah, and look, parenthetically, this is the guy, and if folks remember a year and a half ago, there was a horrible police shooting in Cobb County. Horrible. It was an ambush. They lit these guys up, and every department, every office from around that area responded, including Paulding County. Gary Gullidge, our outgoing sheriff, was there. So Craig Owen Sr. has a press conference that night. He's got all these sheriffs behind him, right? Including Gary. And then he starts talking about getting these guns off the street, and you can see how mortified Gary is at this point. Because Gary Gullidge is a very liberty-minded sheriff.
I'll tell you real quick. We were Friday, 2 days ago. We had some active shooter training at the business that I work in, which is in Paulding County, and the first thing there's 3 deputies in there teaching. Actually, the one teaching it was Ashley Henson, who is the incoming sheriff. But they asked, they were like, "What's your active shooter plan?" And I was like, "Freaking shoot back!" And every last one of them was like, that is the best plan that there is. Like that's how liberty minded and kind of Second Amendment geared this sheriff's office is. So,
Oh yeah, you know how many times that I've given a hug to Chad or Ashley. Chad is the chief deputy, and Ashley's the incoming, and they know damn well I'm carrying a gun. They know, and they support it 100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean I'm carrying past a sign that says no firearms, but in Georgia that has no weight. They don't.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I might as well say no aliens.
Right.
Sorry,
I interrupted you there.
Yeah, no, you can't carry a gun in here. I disagree. All right, so anyway, that was the parenthetical about what kind of person Craig Owen Sr. is. So he goes up to the window, and I don't know if this is for a kid or whatever, and he wants a Whopper, no mayonnaise, cut in half. All right. Because of my gastro issues, I get my Whoppers without onions, right?
Right.
And I get a Whopper every 6 months just to remind me of why I don't eat a lot of Whoppers. If they put ketchup or they put onions on it, you know what I do? Open it, take them off, and move on with my life.
Right.
Never occurred. Apparently, he made such a scene, and this is not part of the story, but they locked the doors on this guy. They had no idea who he was. He was not. Again, he's in his civilian vehicle, his POV, his personal owned vehicle. He's out of uniform. When he makes the call, 2 deputies respond. And I mean, lights on, siren blaring, blowing through red lights to respond to this thing. So he goes, so this is all on body camera. So they go up there, they knock on the door. The employees see a deputy in uniform. They open the door, and they're like, we just need some information. Nobody's in trouble. This is not going on a report. We need to know who the owner and who the manager is. Because Craig Owen Sr. wanted to make a complaint about the Whopper having mayonnaise not being cut in half. So they get the information, and this is floating out there. This is all Freedom of Information Act. And when does it come up? October surprise from David Cavender, who is running against him.
I would play that video every day if I were.
Oh yeah, and he's David Cavender is an officer for Cobb County. Now understand, Cobb County has two different police forces. You have the sheriff's office, which up until now, traditionally until Owens took over, was take care of the jail, serve warrants. They weren't really on the road deputies. They had a warrant division that would kick your door down, which is how the 2 guys got popped was serving a warrant. And then you had obviously the jail division, which is the sheriff's big headache is dealing with the jail.
Right. They also did the court system.
Right, yeah, bailiffs. Right. And Paulding, we have the marshals that do that. Well, not on the courthouse side is deputies. The marshals are on the side where your board was and my board is, in the county building.
Yeah, so, there was something several years ago, like 25 years ago. I mean, or late 90s, mid to late 90s, where the state legislature was like, you know what, we're not going to do any more police forces. Sheriff's office is going to handle it all. So there had to be, like for the police force to be a legal entity, it had to be in place by whatever day. And I remember there was a handful of counties around, Cherokee was one of them, that went ahead and did all of the necessary stuff to
hire
make a police force.
A police chief.
Yeah, there's like a police officer. So that if Cherokee County ever decided that they wanted to have a Cherokee County police force, they could. But anyway, that's weird little trivial knowledge about that.
Ex post facto, yes, the grandfathered in.
Right.
But yeah, but David Cavender couldn't be reached for this because he was on patrol. He was on duty for Cobb County Police. So that I first of all, you would never see Gary Gullidge do that. You would never see Ashley Henson do that. If first of all, if an owner of any local owner found out that you gave Gary the wrong order, you're fired. It's not because Gary would do anything. It's because he's so well respected out here.
Right.
And that you should recognize who he is. If you do any order correctly, you make sure it's Gary's. And that's not because people fear him or anything else. It's because people really respect the man.
Right. Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he really is. All right. I'm going to do my best here. Shh. Be very quiet. Tim Elmer Fudd Walz can't even load his own shotgun.
So here's the funny part about this is I saw the video of this earlier today, and I didn't know who it was. I just thought it was some like random dude, and my first thought was, what the hell is this guy doing with a gun in his hand? Like who gave him a shotgun? Because he was fumbling around trying to load it, and then when Dave and I were, for everyone listening, Dave and I were talking on the phone earlier, just catching up and whatever, because we hadn't spoken in like 9 days, and he was telling me about it, and I was like, wait a minute, I saw that video. I didn't even know who it was, but my reaction then was just like, what kind of dumbass gave this dude a gun? But anyway, go ahead.
First of all, it's a nice shotgun. It's a Beretta.
Right.
It's a Beretta autoloader. I mean, it's a fantastic shotgun. He says he uses it for shooting skeet. And then he goes, the reason I use it is this rubbery thing right here. I'm like, you mean a recoil pad? You stupid D-bag. Like, there's nobody around him that pulls him to the side before having the cameras roll and go, all right, Mr. Grifford, come here. All right, this is a Beretta. Let me show you something. This is the way you load an autoloader. This is what we're going to do. All right, you're going to do this. You're going to hold this exactly. You're going to go ahead and load the chamber, release it, and then go ahead and load the tube, and it's ready to go. No, he's talking about this shotgun that he loves and he uses it all the time for shooting skeet and can't friggin' load it. I'm not saying Tim Walz has never shot skeet. I guarantee he's done it like this. Bam, bam. Then hand the gun over to the guide next to him. Load it up. Here you go, sir. Go ahead and say, pull. Bam, bam. Oh, that was close. That was close. You're getting better. And load it up for him again. Yeah. There's no way this guy is standing out bird hunting or anything else loading his own shotgun when he can't. We talked before about performance anxiety, like people are watching you. We were talking about backseat trailers and people watching when you're on a boat launch. But
right.
Look, you wouldn't think twice if you had 50 people around you and I handed you a shotgun. It doesn't matter if you'd never held it before in your life. Okay, load them, no problem. It would take you 2 seconds to look at it because you and I have handled guns all our lives.
Right.
You know, even if you hand me something that I've never seen before, it won't take me but 2 seconds to figure out how to load it.
Right. Yeah. The longest time is figuring out the other controls. Bolt releases, safeties, where are those at? Like, that's it. But like you said, it would be a matter of seconds. It would take about 5 seconds to figure, oh, okay, here's the safety, here's the bolt release. Because some of them are low, some of them are high.
The Benelli M4 has some strange things about it, like having to pull the trigger to get the round to drop in the tray to be ready. So that's got some quirks to it that somebody may not know, but they could load it.
Right.
But Mala has got a big man problem. We're going to talk about a couple of stories with her man problem. She's trying to show Walz doing manly stuff, and he is failing at it. I mean, the dude could not be any less manly if he was Sam Brinton, showed up in a dress with a shaved head. He could not look less manly. And then you have Obama, who's campaigning for Harris to brothers. This is not me. This is Obama. Using that term. Now, Obama speaks whiter than I do.
Right?
Let me be clear. What we're having a problem here is with brothers. Where did that come from? Where does that... First of all, Obama doesn't like her either. Nobody likes this woman. And he's doing his half-hearted thing because he's the head of the Democratic Party, even though he hasn't been in office in 8 years. He's the head of the Democratic Party. He said, the quote is, seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. God almighty. If I wasn't doing a direct quote, I would have people with pitchforks and torches outside my front door.
Right, I would too, just for being a guest right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, part of me makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. No, it's that woman we don't like. It's not any woman, it's that woman.
Right.
Same thing they said about Hillary. It's not that we dislike the idea of having... First of all, you can't find a Republican with any historical knowledge that doesn't like Margaret Thatcher. One of those brilliant women and wonderful leaders, ever. When she went to school for a science degree. She went chemistry, I think is what it was. She was actually part of the team that created soft serve ice cream through chemistry, because science was the only area in which she could graduate and not be made a secretary.
Right.
Margaret Thatcher was brilliant. Strong. They call her the Iron Lady. If she was reincarnated today as an American, there's not a single one of us that would mind her running for office, running for president for that matter, because she was a strong leader. And she held Parliament together during some of the darkest times at the end of the Cold War. It's not the woman. It's not her race. Obama won election and re-election very handily and easily, despite being, having horrible, horrible policies, because people like Obama. It has nothing to do with her race, has nothing to do with her sex.
Right.
It has to do with the fact that she's a scumbag. We don't like her. I don't even like the way she talks. She's very nasally. But the fact that the media carries her water and says we're racist for mispronouncing her first name, Kamala versus Kamala, who cares? When I speak to some of the guys who speak Spanish who work for me, I'm David. I'm not like, no, it's David. And that's a lot of cultural problems you have right there not pronouncing my name correctly. Hell, the guys that I work with, if your name is Jose, they don't care if you call him Jose. I don't care. Write the check.
Right.
But more on this is Kamala is running. Well, sorry, she's not running. A group is running for her an ad called Man Enough. Oh, my dear Lord, Matt, have you seen this one?
No.
You could not pick 4 more limp-wristed men. They're all paid actors. And it's guys saying, I'm man enough to vote for a woman. I'm not intimidated by women. I can't say I'm not intimidated by any woman. I'm intimidated very much at home. I mean, but no, women in leadership does not intimidate me. And I'm not voting for Kamala. Right. But it's this idea that and look, one of these guys, and look, I'm not saying anything bad about my gay brothers and sisters or anything else, but this guy's obviously gay, sitting in the back of a pickup truck, almost crossing his legs, telling how manly he is. And you're like, I'm not scared of bears. I bet you're not. I think we're talking about 2 different types of bears here. I'm talking about grizzlies, and you're talking about Phil at the club.
You've managed to offend a lot of people with this episode, Dave. I'm a fan. I like it.
But
Earlier you said the real army, and I thought, well, there's people that just checked out.
Okay, there is the real army, there's the reserve, and there's the guard. The real army wakes up on Monday morning at 5 o'clock, has to go run. The reserve and guard have to wake up at 7:30 on Saturday and go hang out in the motor pool for 2 days. Tell me I'm wrong. You've been in the reserve.
You're not wrong. I'm just saying that when you make that distinction, there are people that get sideways about it.
No, there's nothing against reservists or guardsmen. They deployed a ton, especially. I was in the reserve and guard. And my reserve unit was a special operations reserve unit. We deployed. I mean, it's kind of annoying to a employer. Like, I've got to go. How long you be going? 9 months.
Right. I don't know.
Oh, by the way, you can't replace me, and I'll be back in 9 months.
Right.
But no, my point on this thing with talking to you is both of us are fairly man. As much as we goof and all that stuff, we're both Army veterans. You're big in hunting. I'm big in offshore fishing. We do like manly stuff.
Yeah, like we participate in stereotypical manly activities.
Well, and you participate in one of the most stereotypical manly things. You're a father to 7 kids.
Right.
And I'm not talking about making them. I'm talking about that you do the most manly thing possible is you're a provider for 7 kids. And you were there as a role model for 7 kids. And that's the manliest thing you can do. And none of that was discussed in this. It was these guys that were actors. They're literally actors. These some of the Camilla things about the I'm not a rich guy, or I'm not rich as hell. That stuff. Those are people that are being used as dupes. These were people who were cast in this role, and you couldn't find 4 people that were. I mean, you couldn't get. I don't know. Brad.
Go find a lumberjack and like a concrete worker.
Right.
Right. A guy that does concrete for a living. Maybe a brick mason.
No, these guys are like, I'm not afraid to cry, especially in front of my horse. And this dude is like 6'1", standing in front of a quarter horse. I'm like, please don't get on that poor thing. Please don't get on that poor quarter horse. If you stand higher than your horse's head, you do not need to be riding it.
He's getting under it.
He's not riding. He was probably scared of the horse, and they brought it into the chute. Like, is it going to bite me? You know, these were Hollywood elites. I think it was produced by Jimmy Kimmel or something. It was just bad. And more bizarre hair support. Gretchen Whitmer, who is the president of Michigan, how she's still the president, I have no idea. I despise this woman. She fed a Dorito to a social media influencer in a communion style, wearing a Camilla or wearing a Harris Walz hat. Bizarre. A Dorito. Like nacho cheese Dorito.
Right.
Eucharist style on this girl's tongue.
Well, that's strange.
It is. I guess there's some TikTok thing about feeding chips to people or whatever, but the way she was sitting down and had her mouth out and the way Whitmer put it on her tongue, Catholics were offended.
Right.
And she came out and apologized and all this stuff. Why do they keep doing this bizarre stuff? I mean, I get it. If it's the extreme left, they see this is great, you know, that this weird sort of thing. Every time a politician tries to be cool, they fail.
Right. Well, that's just because, in general, they're out of touch. And it's not really their fault. It just happens. Like, that's just the socioeconomic, whatever. Like, they just live a different life than the rest of us. And, you know, they get some advisor somewhere that's like, oh, this is a popular thing. You should do this. And they fail at it. So,
they all saw Bill Clinton on Arsenio Hall. At first,
playing his saxophone.
Yeah, he didn't come off as cool to me. And look, I like Arsenio. I think he's funny as hell. But they portrayed it as cool. And since then, every politician's tried to come off as cool. And it has failed every time. Look, Donald Trump is not cool. He's 80 damn years old. Look, I'm 47. I have given up on being cool. I can be funny. I can be the cool uncle, but that just means I'm more permissive than the parents. But I can't just go up to, let's see, my niece is a junior in college. You know, she'd be like, "Oh, hey, I can't just go sit with her and her friends like, what's up, fellow cool kids?" No. I learned that at her graduation. I was standing around with all the adults, and I'm like, it was surreal for me because, you know, I don't have kids, so it wasn't gradual. It's that all the kids were outside and all the adults were inside, you know, having a cocktail. I'm like, I'm on the other side of it now.
Right.
Like you walk outside, and they all stop talking. You know, you're not cool anymore. You're an adult.
Right.
You know, it's not
cool. Unless one of them knows you. In which case, then they can give you the pass, but
yeah, but you get a pass for a short time. But you know what we think is cool? Paying our bills.
Right.
You know, cool isn't dragging your asses at 4:00 in the morning, completely broke, still with 4 stamps from different clubs we went to in our hands and passing out. No, cool is getting up on Monday morning and going to work.
Right. I run into that some with the guys on my team. About half my team is they're guys in their mid to late 20s. And, you know, like they'll ask me questions, you know, about life choices and whatnot. And I'll be like, well, you know, talk to your attorney or talk to your CPA. And they're looking at me with this look on their face. And they're like, is this what being a grown-up is about, is having an attorney and having a CPA and
yes
and whatnot? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, man, F that.
Look, if in some bizarro world I get accused of having marijuana, you know who I'm calling?
Oh, yeah.
Catherine Bernard.
Right.
100%. 1, I know she's good. 2, I can afford her.
Right.
Because my reputation and my freedom is more important to me than 10 grand.
Right.
You know, that's just what you do. Is you hire the best you can afford. You know, that's why you work so hard. It's not privilege. You know, I've worked my ass off for everything I have. So have you. I mean, you kind of fell into having a good looking wife, but
yeah, I did.
Tomorrow, as we record, tomorrow's Monday. I'll see her tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. You sure will.
Just
leave cash this time. Your check bounced.
leave the rent money on the counter. This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions, not those of anyone not on the show, or respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over the GeorgiaVirtue.com. All right, the mule is the California Coastal Commission. The Space Force sought to increase the number of launches from SpaceX flagship Falcon 9 from 36 to 50 per year out of California. But on Thursday, California Coastal Commission denied the bid in a 6-4 vote. They hate Elon Musk.
So, part of me, I don't know. I like the dude. I just do. I don't agree with everything he does, but I don't know, just some little snippets and things that I ran across some post from him, I don't know, a week ago or whatever, where he was talking about, I guess Trump has said that he would bring him in to the administration if Trump wins, and you know, he would be charged with reducing the role of the federal government. And he made some post. He was like, I think I can cut the federal government size by about 80%. I'm like, hell yeah. Put this dude in office.
Sign
and I'm an anarchist, right? Like, but like, where's he at? Put him on the ballot.
I know you don't know a whole lot about, like recent or about movies around this time, but you've seen Office Space, right?
Yes.
Where they go into, what would you say you do here? And of course, that goes into the competent guy who went fishing every day, gets promoted, and they lay everybody else off. So this all ties back in. But what would you say you do here? I have people skills. Let me give you an example of something, a joke that I made to somebody. It's a guy that I know off the Outdoors Trader, which is a gun site. He works for Lockheed, and he works in the division that does simulators. C-130 simulators. Lockheed doesn't make simulators. The government gives him the specs of what they want in the simulator. He turns around and hands it to this company that builds the simulator. Then he takes the simulator software back, hands it to the government, and now keep in mind, the money's been made every time it changes hands, over to the government, and they say, oh, this is great, we want you to change this, this, and this. So he turns over to this company that works for Lockheed, goes, we need you to change these things. And they change it and hands it back over to the government. And I looked at him and said, have you ever seen Office Space? He goes, yeah. I said, what would you say you do here? Because you're an engineer, but you're not engineering anything. You're just taking the specs from one end and I go through them before I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. Super nice guy. He's very well educated, but that's what he does. That's the government waste. And that's the same thing that Elon's looking at, is he reduced the staff at Twitter by 80%, and it runs just fine. But the quote here is Elon Musk is hopping about the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods and attacking FEMA, while claiming his desire to help hurricane victims with free Starlink access to the internet. Stated California Coastal Commissioner, another Gretchen, Newsom. Newsom. I haven't looked at that. I see your highlighting to see if she's related. But to go after him, to claim that it's about the environment, and then come back as one of the votes against it and say it's about his political beliefs. First of all, does California want the money or not?
Right.
Does
they need it?
Well, of course they need it. Plus, when Boeing couldn't go get the astronauts, who are they tasking? They're tasking SpaceX. Because they know how to get things done.
Right.
They're
that's just private sector in general.
Well, Boeing's, mostly, I can't even say they're pseudo-private, I guess, at this point. But yeah, Boeing's a private organization. They just can't get their stuff together. And if I were those two astronauts that are stranded up there, I wouldn't be surprised, because the launch was delayed because of problems. They get up there and there's a problem, you can't ride back on it. Of course, being in space, you can't just call the next cab.
Right.
You have to wait for a mission to come up, and NASA's given it to SpaceX because they're good at what they do. So I don't understand putting politics ahead of space exploration. The whole idea is NASA was supposed to be apolitical. The space program, the Apollo program was envisioned by Kennedy and finished by Nixon.
Right.
The Space Center is named after Johnson. So it's supposed to be apolitical. Nobody has any problem with the Apollo program that went through Democrat and Republican hands before we actually landed on the moon. No problem with that. They're just that's why they're the mules. This one was actually from Eric, who sent it to us, who keeps an eye on, especially on things in the air, being a drone pilot and all that stuff. All right, the liberal news is not even trying to hide it anymore. I don't know if you saw this, Matt, but 60 Minutes did an interview with Harris, and the unedited version, they're asking her some basic question about how she's different from, or I can't remember how she's different from Biden or something like that. It was completely unintelligible. They took a response she made from something else and patched that in. They edited this thing to make her sound more eloquent and honestly intelligent than she actually is.
Huh.
Do you remember when 60 Minutes was like the standard?
Yes. And I don't know, like people are, I say people, the government is all, concerned about the fact that people are now getting their news from TikTok or, Facebook Reels or Instagram or wherever. That's why. Like the media itself has become so politicized that people just don't trust it anymore.
And look, Mike Wallace was a liberal. So is his son, Chris Wallace. Barbara Walters, liberal. Andy Rooney, most likely a liberal, but was the best part of the show. You get the last 2 minutes with Andy Rooney. But I knew it even as a young kid. When you heard that stopwatch go tick 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 tick, okay, it's 60 minutes.
Right? Yeah, that was a thing.
And everybody sat down and watched it. And honestly, I watched it for Andy Rooney. You know what I hate? Yeah, that guy. But Andy Rooney was extremely well educated and intelligent. But that was just his shtick. Is he would do a few minutes with Andy Rooney, and he would pick something goofy, It'd be about payphones or something stupid like that. But after watching all these horrible stories, and back when we were
For our
kids,
younger listeners, payphones are phones that were located on the side of the road, usually at gas stations, and you put a quarter in or 35 cents, and you made
used
a
to be
call.
a dime. Parenthetically, that's where the term "drop a dime" on somebody comes from. Was
Right.
going to a payphone, dropping a dime, and calling the police. So yeah, after 57 minutes of listening to horrible stories, like when we were kids, it was a lot of the IRA, or it was a story about Russians, or this was during the Cold War,
Right.
that you and I were coming up watching this stuff. So you would watch 50 something minutes of just awful stuff, then you would get comic relief at the end, and that was great, but it was more or less facts. Now they
Right.
did their spin on stuff, but it was more or less facts. They didn't edit stuff. If Morley Safer did an interview with Bush 41, they ran it unedited. Not necessarily the entire thing, because you sit down with somebody for an hour. You obviously can't put an hour interview into an hour show. You're going to cut it down, but they didn't edit answers,
Right.
or else people would come unglued. And people really need to be coming unglued on this, because they changed her answers. And that's not the point of an interview. Not only is that a violation of journalistic ethics, that's just a violation of being a decent human being.
Right.
And you've interviewed more than your fair share of people. You've worked in media. You've done you started this show. And you've interviewed people, but would it even occur to you to change their answers?
Nope. I didn't even change. Especially a lot of times I wound up doing more written style interviews with candidates, and I wouldn't even change. I wouldn't fix spelling and grammatical errors.
Right. And look, there's something there. There's the site that puts all the mugshots up. And every once in a while, they'll put the police narrative up, and they'll say, "We've edited nothing." And you'll see poor grammar and misspellings, things like that. And look,
Right.
that's not the officer's fault. They're doing it on the side of the road real quick, in their car. So typos happen, but they said they do not change the narrative at all. So if something is misspelled, if there's a there, then it comes out there because there's no E on the end of it. They don't change it. It's all understandable. We don't think any less of the arresting officer because he typoed, but they don't change it.
Right.
Although, if I were a candidate, I would make sure I proofread it, someone else proofread it, and somebody else proofread it before I handed it back over to the reporter. I mean, in live interviews, you don't have that, but she just, with the unedited version of it, she comes off like a babbling idiot. She does what she does. She talks around in circles, doesn't say anything, then comes back and says the question that you asked her, and then sits there, stops talking and smiles like it was an answer, like she said something intelligent.
Right.
How this woman got through law school, I don't know. She is walking proof of why you just don't hire anybody who's a member of the friggin' bar. Can you imagine her giving closing arguments in front of a jury and the jury scratching their head going, what the hell did she just say? Or worse, negotiating with Putin.
Right.
Or whichever Kim Jong is going to be in charge in North Korea at the time. You just hear Putin go, I'm not sure what she said. Like, I think there's something wrong with my translator. You didn't make any sense, Madam President. And then the mic comes over in Russian and go, no, Premier, she's an idiot. Ah. So as we close this Columbus Day episode out, Matt, do you have any closing thoughts?
I mean, my closing thoughts are probably vastly different than what most of the folks that listen to this are, and that is really, man, just start ignoring this. Put your time and effort and energy into figuring out how to deprive the government of your money. Don't show up and vote. Don't stump for any candidate. They all want the same thing, and that's your money to spend in ways that you don't want it to be spent. So just figure out how to deprive them of it. Make Super Tuesday just another beautiful fall day.
You are a beam of light, Matthew.
Right?
You started a political podcast, and then you come on as a guest host and crap all over what I've been doing for 340 episodes.
Right.
It's a good thing I make a living fixing air conditioners and heaters and not in media, because I choose horrible guests.
I'm a great guest. Mildly entertaining. I'm very good looking.
Says who?
Connie.
I highly doubt that. She likes men.
Then what's she doing with you?
I don't know. I have no idea. She's working her way into heaven by being married to me, I reckon.
Right? She's doing her time in hell.
Exactly. Now, all joking aside, big thank you to Matthew for filling in for Ken this week. We'll have a fill-in next week also. Ken is in Napa this week, and I think next week he's in Singapore. So he's really working on that platinum status or diamond status with Delta.
Right.
Big thanks to Eric Cumby, who takes what awful audio we have and turns it into something you can listen to. He's actually listening right now because we had to record live as it's being so late and be able to turn it out. If you like what you heard, please like and share us on the socials, and we'll talk to you next week.
Later.
Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.